Hello and welcome to the Be Smart About Art show. My name is Susan J. Mumford, and I'm delighted to have you here with me today for the Monday edition of the show. Now, on Monday of each week, we look at some news from the art world this week. What is happening in this new and different art world? And there indeed is always something happening. We are, after all, in the creative industries, and therefore people are coming up with new and fascinating ideas. And I've got three pieces of coverage for you today from The Guardian, one titled Bye Bye Blockbusters, Can the Art World Adapt to COVID-19? That is by Andrew Dixon. We have then got, secondly, This is the toughest challenge my business has ever faced, but here's why small galleries like mine will come out alive. So that one is in ArtNet News by Magda Sawan. And then last but not least, we've got a piece that is in ArtNet titled Through Windows and Doorways. This photographer has been capturing poignant images of isolated New Yorkers. See them here. And I'm going to give you a very local reference to myself in Lewes and East Sussex, because there's a photographer doing the same thing here. And that piece in ArtNet News is by Sarah Cascone, and I know Sarah. So it's lovely to see that piece in today's segment. So the segment is approximately 15 minutes or so. I'm just going to grab my iPhone here so that I can help to keep on top of any of your comments. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you think the breaking news of the art world is this week. I would love to see your comments coming up on my app that I'm just pulling here for you. And as ever, we're here to help enable you participating, connecting, and growing. That's what it says on the screen behind me. And Be Smart About Art, when the COVID-19 crisis really launched, we started talking about keeping it simple and supportive, and that's what we're here doing for you today. Great. So I just need to turn the sound off on that. Great. Okay, so let's get to that first piece of news. Bye Bye Blockbusters, Can the Art World Adapt to COVID-19 by Andrew Dixon. This is from the 20th of April. I'll just read some highlights that I've made in my notes for you. The glitzy art fairs and crowded shows are history, replaced with Zoom studio tours and virtual exhibitions. Might this actually mark an improvement? Okay, so I found this reading really interesting. Bearing in mind, I've been in this industry for the best part of 20 years. People have called me a jet setter. I'm an entrepreneur in the art market. And reading people's take on, oh my gosh, how can the art world continue to go at all? Bearing in mind that I'm somebody who's also a CEO of a technology startup for the art industry, I'm intrigued by people's response to this. So if we go back to early March of 2020, that's when the Armory show and Armory Week was taking place in New York. Now, as I've mentioned in the show previously, I was supposed to be there, and actually I didn't go. And the reason I didn't go is based on a risk assessment that I did. The decision was that it was too risky at that stage to travel abroad if you didn't have to be there. And that was actually all a fascinating situation in and of itself, that is weighing up, do you have to be somewhere or do you not have to be there? And actually, you know what? I didn't have to be there. And so with that, it's great to see some people watching live. Hello, hello. I decided to not be there, and I was able to deliver my talks remotely or find replacements for one of them. And yet the fair director for the Armory show, Nicole Berry, said, New Yorkers are strong. Now listen, I like Nicole very much. I've personally met Nicole and she does an excellent job. But they did go and they were like, right, this is the last hurrah. We're going to make this happen. And the fairs did go on with aplomb. And it says here that only a month later, the Armory show looks like the last days of the Roman Empire. And I knew that at the time. Based on my risk assessment, I thought, this can't continue right now. And interestingly, that fair takes place between two piers on the west side of Manhattan. That's piers 90 and 94. And you might have heard the news that one US Navy hospital ship is moored at New York, and that's at Pier 90. So it's kind of interesting to be thinking about that. Now, isn't this an apocalyptic headline by Jerry Saltz, the New York Magazine art critic. He titled one piece, "The Last Days of the Art World." I mean, he's being very typically Jerry Saltz. If you don't know his writing, go and check him out. He's quite a character. And I really like the take in this article of Frances Morris. Now, she is the director of Tate Modern. Actually, she's a great example of a woman museum director taking on a huge budget, because that's been one of the perceived challenges, or perhaps the glass ceiling for women museum directors, is once you got to certain levels of budgets that women just weren't able to break through, and they're beginning to break through now. So she's a great example, and I love her take in this article. So she states, and she gives a few quotations that I want to just pull out. "It's a pivotal moment. We're going to talk in terms of before and after. The virus will change a lot of things for art, and I would add, for the viewing of art, for the engagement of art." And the writer asks, but what sort of changes and what sort of things? And certainly that is all speculative at this stage. And I agree with this. It says, "One glimmer of hope is that although we can't see art in person, we seem hungry to access it by any means possible." It's really nice to be hearing from the museum directors as well. Now, here is some interesting information. These are real statistics for you that backs up that hunger to see art. The Courtauld Gallery's virtual tour reported an astonishing 723% spike in visitors in mid-March. And if you think about the fact that in mid-March, lockdowns were just beginning to take place, people were just beginning to go, my gosh, are things going to change? Now, whereas I had done my risk assessment and had made a decision by the end of February, by the middle of March, still a lot of people hadn't changed very much. A lot of people were still working at that stage. And so if by mid-March they had already seen a 723% spike, I will just be gobsmacked by what that increase is today. And that this is also added. Every private gallery worth its salt has launched online viewing rooms. Now, I wouldn't say every gallery worth its salt. I'm going to slightly disagree with that. Some people are still working out their solutions. It's not actually the easiest thing. I know some small galleries that are actually still working on what they're doing. So Alison Cole, who is editor of Industry Bible, the art newspaper, says, "It's unprecedented. We do know this. After talking about it for years, a lot of people are finally seizing the opportunity of online." And I concur. Now, I'm one of these people who, for years, people have kind of gone, "Susan, what's this weird online thing that you're doing?" Or what is this new kind of change with Be Smart About Art to take things online? Well, here we are, and now it all makes sense, and I already had the foundation ready to go, which is awesome. Now, I didn't realize that there was a Twitter feed by the Royal Academy of Art, so check out this hashtag if you haven't already, hashtag RA Daily Doodle. That's all one word, hashtag RA Daily Doodle. It's a challenge aimed at amateur artists. Other galleries are trialing similar projects. So people are doing things in a very, very different way to engage audiences. And what I like here, and this is what I really wanted to pull out of this section of this article, is less top-down and more collaborative. And of course, one of the things I've been talking about with Be Smart About Art when I'm talking about professional partnerships, be it between an artist and a gallery or whatever the relationship type, is that it's becoming more collaborative. We had already been seeing this over a period of years. And now I couldn't agree more with this. We are seeing much more about collaborative and less top-down. Think about the artists and galleries working together, in which the galleries are having to say, right, artist, you have the works of art, you fulfill the shipments. They're really having to work closely together and trust each other. This word trust is really important. And I'm just going to skip ahead and tell you about how Frances Morris talks about how much easier it is to get hold of people. She thinks it's kind of helpful that things have slowed down a bit. And then we go on in the article to talk about the grim reality of money. And one thing that I think is interesting is that David Zwirner says things like, of course, there's going to be a lot of pain, especially for smaller galleries and, of course, artists. Now, we're going to contradict that in just a moment with the next article, so keep your ears ready for that. And Cole from the art newspaper is similarly anxious. At the top end, the art world is a luxury industry, but many of the people who work in it, the artists, the handlers, the gallery staff, are in very precarious positions. We published an article the other day saying that a third of French galleries could close by the end of 2020. Now, is that close or go out of business? I'm guessing that they mean go out of business. Even if the art market bounces back, it's going to be a much smaller world. And then Cole argues normal was unsustainable. The endless expansion, the mega collectors, the purchasing of big trophy objects. I think we're entering a period of less is more. I hope it'll be less macho. And that is the point where I think we might end up seeing an industry after this that is actually a bit more balanced. We can hope that there are some silver linings, but we've been seeing that the economy around the world hasn't been making sense for years. It is a patriarchal economy. And is there something in which things can be done in ways considering different forms of value? What about things that are done in a more fair way? It's not to be too idealistic or to be unrealistic, but it is to say this could actually present the change that we have been waiting for a long time. And everyone agrees in this article, by the by, galleries, museum directors, everything, that the role of the physical space is actually going to be more relevant and appreciated than ever. I think that that's basically saying that with what we're going through now, people are going to realize, the physical space is a location where some things happen, and then maybe there are different types of engagement that take place online to provide accessibility. And I'm going to finish with this, and this is a quotation by Francis Morris, so listen to this. After the First World War, it was Dada and Surrealism. After the Second World War, that is, existentialism and gestural abstraction. Whatever the world looks like, it will be interesting. So that was in The Guardian. That was by Andrew Dixon. We're going to move on to the second piece now. These last two are actually a bit more kind of a flying tour on these because they follow that very much so. So the second one is by Magda Sawan. This is an artnet.com. It's Artnet News. And this is from the 27th of April. So from today, this is the toughest challenge my business has ever faced, but here's why small galleries like mine will come out alive. Now, I think that this is worth you reading. Let's have a look at that. So this is talking about the co-founder, or this is rather by the co-founder of Postmasters Gallery. And so she essentially goes in to say, by the way, the website is postmastersart.com, opened in 1984 in New York. She's Polish, moved over as an adult, I think with her other half. So she goes on to say that she actually thinks that basically smaller galleries are really well positioned, that what's going to happen in the future, I'm really summarizing what she said in this piece, is that essentially what will be important in years to come following this pandemic period is that people will be engaging locally, so in their local communities, and then they'll also be connecting virtually to places that are much more remote. So actually, the sense that I get about this, that I get from this, as it says here, is that it's what's going to be prioritized is going to be different. She states survival will be based on innovation, adaptation, and flexibility and smallness. And I have to concur that actually being small means that you can turn on a dime. So what you're able to do is if need is changed, rather if change is needed, is called on, then you can just immediately make that change. You don't have a big team that you're having to necessarily manage, that you're having to work out how to keep on paying everyone. Is that even an option? You're able to go, right, let's do this. It's not to say you can't make changes if you have teams, you absolutely can, but if you're small, you can be agile as well. You're much more able to be agile. And here's another hashtag I did not know about. It's hashtag grow or go. That's again hashtag grow or go. And that's by the collector Alan Survey. So what he's been doing is he's been tracking a systematic erosion of the lower levels of the art ecosystem, with many of the most pivotal progressive galleries unable to stay in the race. So you hear a lot about mom and pops galleries that have closed in recent years. And I really think that this piece by Magda is really encouraging. And I want to read to you the very last of this. She states, "But revolutions and change never come from the top. What we need is new progressive ideas for both galleries and artists working separately and together rather than trying to plug the hole in a sinking ship." And I will confess that the art world did feel like that. William Pahida, an artist we represent, recently came up with Store to Own, a novel way to distribute his work and get it out of storage. He offered select artworks to people to live with for free. That's a good idea. They could purchase it at an increasing discount over the years or sell it and share the profit. It proved very successful. This kind of initiative offers no direct benefit to galleries, but it opens up a system that is in dire need of reinvention. And indeed, the world has changed already. The art world we know has been slow to adapt to cultural change, including technology, and now we really must if we're going to survive. And I think actually, if I think about both of these articles, one of the big things that I think about is when I consider back when I had my own gallery during the credit crunch, what that required was that people make change. And if you weren't up for making change, you weren't going to survive. But if you were willing to innovate, and to be collaborative and call in your resources and to communicate with people, you absolutely could survive. And she continues, in the famous words of the infamous Donald Rumsfeld, you go to the war with the army you have. The post-COVID art world will be physically local and virtually global as the regional scenes gain relevance while long-distance art business continues and grows online. As I was saying before, art is needed and art will rise. To paraphrase Dylan, come gather, fin dinghies wherever you roam. All this may be naive and delusional, along with Mrs. the writer adding, along with many others, I may not be here in a few months, bankrupt and unable to continue. But this is at the time. You know the David versus Goliath story, and you know how it ends. Take care, everybody. So I thought that was quite a thought-provoking piece, and I'm going to finish with this final piece, and this is in ArtNet News by writer Sarah Cascone, and I do indeed know Sarah Cascone. It's from April 23rd. It's called Through Windows and Doorways. This photographer has been capturing poignant images of isolated New Yorkers. See them here. And this is basically the story of a photographer, Ventiko, Ventiko, who has been going around New York City during the lockdown and been photographing people at their homes through their windows and at their front doors. I mean, it's quite interesting. So you can see some images there on the screen, people dressing up. There's somebody in leopard, like a leopard print leotard. There's a couple both wearing masks. I mean, it is just absolutely beautiful. These are actually in color in the real deal. So I've just printed them out in black and white. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's beautiful views as well. So I wanted to finish with that because I thought that was a really clever idea. I guess the big question being how that satisfies lockdown rules must be said. Presumably you could do this when you were going out for your exercise, or perhaps I'm projecting the UK lockdown sort of parameter as well. I will add there's somebody else in addition to Ventiko to pay attention to, and that is Sarah Wheel. The @ handle on Instagram is SARAWEAL, and Sarah is local to me in Lewes in East Sussex, and she for the last number of weeks has been going around to people's homes, arranging this clearly in advance and standing outside and photographing them through their windows. There have been some really touching images. So if you go check out Sarah Wheel, you'll find her images as well. So Ventiko and Sarah Wheel are two photographers to go and look out for their lockdown images of people through their windows. I mean, how touching is that? It actually gives me chills up and down to even think about that. Well, I see some fantastic comments coming through. Hello to everyone who is watching. And if you know of some artists or some photographers who do some really interesting projects inspired by this time, please add those into the comments here on the live video. I think that's really fascinating. And art is about life, right? It's about expressing about what's happening, and this is what's happening in this time. And as we're now seeing in the Sunday Be Smart About Art show, that edition is now talking about green shoots every week. So we are living through this period. We are entering a new norm. In the coming weeks, I'll be showing you some photographs from each room of my home, because you can actually see how I'm readjusting all of the living space to make room for the different needs. I was just talking with my husband Chris over the weekend when we were on one of our walks about how actually we're now entering a phase where, yes, we've got some shops that are food shops, for example, that are reopening because they're realizing, this is not only for a few weeks, this is something that's going to be here for a while. So how can we work out continuing to exist? Now, they're allowed to reopen. They did actually have to close in the first place. Part of the reason that some of those shops closed, particularly small ones, was that they weren't quite sure how to handle the hygiene. But as time goes, people are going, right, what can I do in order to keep engaging with people? And if you find it's a challenge to get things done, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. There are times when in this environment things seem too uncertain that you might just need to go get a breather, go do some meditation, do something that it doesn't have to be work. You don't have to be productive, but what you will find, I expect, over the coming months is that life does have a new normal, and it looks different, but it's still here. So I'm just thinking about those articles we've just been reviewing today and what is happening in the art world. One of the biggest questions from those being, as well, it's something I didn't actually read to you, but the one big question being, what's the future of art fairs? We really don't know. Everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as ever. So thank you very much for joining in. Join me at future editions of the Be Smart About Art show. If you're not yet seeing the notifications when we go live, in the comment box right now, please select to get notifications for when we go live. It's Sunday to Thursday, and being that it's Monday, tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be talking about boosting your art business. And I'm looking forward as ever to talking about specific things that you can do in addressing challenges. Here's to thriving in this different art world. And as we say, participate, connect, and grow. I look forward to seeing you again online soon. And I'm signing out. Be sure to check out our membership community, patreon.com/BeSmartAboutArt. Until next time, signing out from Lewis in East Sussex.